Hi, I'm Russell Gilbert, and you're listening to my interview with Alain Goodman on Gogoodman.com.au.
Welcome back to the Alain Go Goodman Show at 6 minutes to 3. Our special guest is in here. Mr. Gridley, what was your reaction?
Oh, I loved it. I was waiting. You had me guessing for so long. I had it nailed from thousands to hundreds, but the name, Russell Gilbert, never entered my brain, and I'm very glad he entered the studio.
Mr. Russell Gilbert, welcome to 88.3
Mr. Russell Gilbert.
Southern FM and the Alain Go Goodman Show.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be on. You don't have to call me Mr. Russell Gilbert. Russell will be fine, and nice to see you as well.
I've been watching you on my TV screens and listening to you on radio for years, so
yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you in here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be in here.
One of the greats and one of the people who've had longevity in the Australian comedy industry and media industry.
Yeah, well, it's not an easy job, you know. You go to hero to zero pretty quick, you know. At the moment, I'm heading back towards zero, but and you keep plugging along and working at it, and you can try and get yourself back, you know. But it's been a fun ride.
So, I'd love asking this question to comedians because everyone has a different answer. What's the earliest memory you have of comedy having an effect on you?
The earliest, probably watching Benny Hill when I was younger, and I think in grade 6. I got a Benny Hill album, and I used to. I learned it verbatim. I could sing you Ernie if you wanted to. You know, the classic song. Do you remember Ernie, who drove the fastest milk cart in the West?
Probably a little bit before my time.
It may be a little bit before your time, but
I know it. I love it.
Yeah, it was an old song. You could hear the earth beats pound as they race across the ground, and the clatter of the wheels as they spun round and round. As he galloped into Market Street, his badge upon his chest, they called him Ernie, and he drove the fastest milk cart in the West. And the whole song's about Ernie having a rival. And he was an evil-looking man. He was called Two-Ton Ted from Teddington, and he drove the baker's van. And it goes on and on and on, and they have a fight, and they throw rock cakes at each other and milk, because Ernie a milkman, and his rival, Two-Ton Ted from Teddington, he drove the baker's van, and a rock cake caught him underneath the heart, and it ended sadly. Ernie bit the dust, and I remember the last line... as they laid in their bed, the clatter, and you could hear there was a lovely little bit at the end. It was Ernie's ghostly gold tops rattling in their crate when they were laying in bed, and Ernie had moved on. But that was probably one of my earliest, and I think at that time Paul Hogan was around too, but that's probably my earliest memory of laughing and being able to. My father and mother were both huge Benny Hill fans, so we grew up watching a lot of English comedy. Dick Emery and, you know, a lot of shows like that. You wouldn't remember these guys. And then a little bit later...
Mr. Gridley would.
Mr. Gridley, did you remember those?
Well, I'm younger than you, Russell, but I have got parents who loved it and passed down all their love of mostly Monty Python and that sort of era.
Well, Monty Python came a little bit later for me, and it was probably... I was on a bit late, Monty Python, but I did get to see a lot of Monty Python, and I just watched the special when they all got back together. They just recently did a big show and did some of the old sketches only last year, so it was on one of the Foxtel channels just recently.
That's right. One of them's gone, and the other 5 are combined 400 years old or something. So it's interesting seeing them do their old stuff.
Well, that goes to prove that, you know. Comedy doesn't age, you know, you just got to keep moving along with the times. You know, look at Rodney Dangerfield, you know, he really didn't hit his straps till he was like in his early 50s.
That's right. George Carlin, another one.
Well, no, George Carlin, I'm a huge George Carlin fan. I have everything he's done. He passed away a few years ago. He had a heart problem, and then he went in to get it checked, and he didn't come through it. Now, George Carlin, he went right through the 50s as a suit comic, and then as it got to the 70s, he was on the Ed Sullivan Show a lot, which they're repeating at the moment. And if you cast your eye on Foxtel, Ed Sullivan's got the best of, and he may have done 10 appearances on that, but in a suit. He was a suit comic, and it was the early 70s where he started to do all the campus clubs, and George Carlin became sort of right through that hip era of like a lot of the weed smokers around Cheech and Chong's time in the early 70s, right up until he passed away. He's probably the most prolific comic I've ever heard, and if you go through his catalogue, there isn't a subject that he hasn't touched on. That when you listen to other comics, and myself included, you say George Carlin's he's nearly touched on every bit of material you want to think of. He's so prolific. He brought out 4 books. napalm and silly putty, brain droppings, and When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? And then he had his memoirs at the end. But I'm a big George Carlin fan.
Yeah, did he just get better and better? He got darker and he was able to take any audience with him on any topic.
Oh, look, some of the opening lines, look, I couldn't say them on radio, what he opened shows with. And look, no holds barred with George Carlin. Absolutely sensational, funny, very big on the English language, minced words really well, played around with words, and sounds, and his bodily movements, and he just was complete. I have more respect for George Carlin than any other comic I've ever heard or watched, so it's nice that you bring that up, because I had a little bit of information on it later.
I can just see you wide-eyed. You're just like a little kid. This is great. I made a good decision.
Yes, I love George Carlin for his philosophy as well as for his comedy.
Yeah.
When you've got those two things, you can sell a message as well as be hilarious.
Yeah,
that's what you want to be.
Well, Bill Hicks worked a lot like that too, and he's no longer with us.
And you know what?
God rest
He's
his
my
soul.
favourite one.
He's your favourite.
Yeah.
So I thought once you mentioned George Carlin, you'd be a bit of a Bill Hicks fan too, and didn't mind telling how it is and challenging the hierarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, they were both very, very good comedians. Sadly, no longer with us.
What you mentioned your comedy record collection. What other comedians did you have in your collection?
Oh, look, I had about 300 or 400. I still have them on LP, maybe. Look, I had a broad. I had Shelley Berman albums. I had. I remember even Maxwell Smart, Don Adams. I had a Don Adams album. I'm all Monty Python stuff. Cheech and Chong, of course, in my hippie days. When I was sitting out in the bungalow. When I was smoking wacky tobacco. At 16 and 17, no longer. I get too paranoid now when I ever have that. When you think the bloke in front of you is following you, it's time to stop smoking the wacky tobacco. No. But look, numerous. I could go and look at most the first 3 albums I had of Robin Williams, The Throbbing Python of Love. I had Steve Martin albums. So basically, and always had a love for magic too. So I always play around on stage when I do my shows and do a little bit of magic. But it's sort of become quite hip at the moment, hasn't it? Magic. Everyone's doing this close-up magic, and I think there's quite a few camera tricks involved these days.
There might be, but David Blaine, I cannot figure him out.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Look, I can't say for sure either. Some of the things he does, they all fascinate me.
Now Dynamo is insane.
Oh, look, he gets most stains out in the wash. Dynamo. No, but they all have that name, don't they? Dynamo. I've just made a case up called the Great Gilberto, and because there's Dynamo, Constantino, but they've all got that O on the end, which or the great, or
which
the
is
amazing.
The gasp.
Yeah, but magic's really taken off in a big way. But so I had numerous comedy albums. What do you have in your collection?
Oh, well, I've actually recently started a collection, just buying like cheap DVDs from JB Hi-Fi. Recently I bought a few Robin Williams ones.
Yes. Did you buy Live at the Met?
I think I've got 3. I've got his
there was a bootleg.
Weapons
of mass self-destruction.
I've got that. I've got him on Broadway, and I think the other one is him at the Met.
Yeah, the one at the Met, I had like for about 5 or 6 years before it came out. I think somebody taped it or he recorded it and he never really put it out, and then when it was out there he bought it out. But I had that a long time as a bootleg,
And the other one, I think I've got a Gabriel Iglesias one somewhere as well.
Rightio.
What do you know much about him?
I know his brother Julio.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're related.
From all the girls I loved before. That's Julio Iglesias.
This guy goes by he's not fat, he's fluffy.
Oh, rightio.
So that's his tagline. He's big in America. What else do I like? I've recently discovered Rodney Dangerfield and just watched some of his Tonight Show interviews.
Stuff.
He's brilliant. I've looked up his jokes on Facebook. Not on Facebook, on Google, and found lists of his jokes. He was in The Simpsons. I bought his autobiography as well.
Yeah, wonderful comedian, and really made it big again. When in his mid-50s.
Yeah, because he took like 25 years off and just was a normal bloke, and then came back.
Did quite a few of the Ed Sullivan shows too, if you're looking out for him. Dangerfield, amazing. There's a great Dangerfield tape out called "It's Not Easy Being Me," and it's on DVD. And he discovered, because he had his own clubs, Dangerfield, and so he discovered a lot of comics. And on this tape is Roseanne Barr, Jerry Seinfeld, and Sam Kinison. And all of these guys, and Roseanne Barr, of course, I put her in that category as a guy. But before they'd all become famous, he believed they were going to be big and famous, and they're all... Sam Kinison, again, another very funny man. Did you like him?
Yeah,
Lee?
Sam Kinison is one comedian that I never knew a lot about until I started reading about my favourites, and they all made reference to him. So I made an effort to go back and go, who is this Sam Kinison?
But if you can find that, Elaine, It's Not Easy Being Me, and Sam Kinison's spot on that. I remember living with Mick Malloy, and we got it, and I got it, and we watched that over and over. His spot on that, it's only a 15-minute spot, but geez, no holds barred. He attacks everybody, and it's outrageously funny.
It seems to have been an era where it was more important to make jokes, and you really got measured on your material and the practice and the work you could see behind the gags than just a hilarious character that wouldn't last. I mean, for a while you can laugh at a hat and the silly glasses, but you just need the jokes.
Oh yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, there was an era there where you had Google, Clem Hopper, or Frankie Fontaine, who used to come out with sweet and sour, some is sweet, some is sour, There was a time when that, and your joke comedians, your Henny Youngmans, who basically created, Take My Wife Please, and then it got more into monologue-based stuff, and that was probably where Lenny Bruce started that off and started doing that, that out there comedy, which, basically it's funny because it's true, and a lot more monologue-y as opposed to joke-based. So you're throwing the humour in.
You got a favourite modern comic?
Look, I find most comics I watch, I find something humorous in all of them. I sit there and I go, well, look, I don't like everything everyone does, but I like something. There's always some. I'll go and see. I'm getting out there and going to do some comedy at the Comics Lounge in North Melbourne next month. I think it's from the 11th to the 16th or something, and I'll watch some of the kids coming through and stuff, and they all make me laugh in different ways. It's hard. It's like I have a wide collection of music too. Like I go from Kraftwerk to Hawkwind to Earth, Wind and Fire. It's just crazy. So I find something. My music tastes are pretty broad, and so are my comedy.
Elena asked us in the first hour if you thought that we had a really bad year for 2014 in comedy, with Robin Williams passing away.
Joan Rivers and what was the word? Controversy surrounding the movie The Interview.
Yes. It's been look, and what's just happened in France, with the satire.
But those new comics coming through, amazing. And I saw, I was in Adelaide during the week.
Yes.
Went to the Raw Comedy State.
Yeah, rightio.
And there's some great young comedians coming through, all different sorts.
Yeah, well...
Ad-libbers, that Sean McAuliffe style's really popular.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And, Ronnie Chang, and who's out there, I watched him do some stuff recently, and Troy Kinney's doing some good stuff. Troy Ellis, I saw, is it Troy? I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. I worked last year at the Comics Lounge. Just getting some flying hours back up yourself. It's funny because, being a comedian and being around for a while, you actually do lose your mojo for a while, and if you lose your mojo, and then it's funny, people go, how can you lose your confidence? And it's like anything. So I had a little bit of that where I just started to get my act back together, and financially, because I gambled too much, I got a few debts here and there. So I find myself, if I am doing a little bit harder, I actually work better because it makes me want to get out there and be funny. Yeah. But back to the young kids coming through, there's some great talent out there. We're up there, the Australian comics are as good as any other comics around the world, so I think we've got quite a good future. I just wish there was more shows on television now where they could actually go and showcase themselves.
Like a Saturday Night Live.
Well, anything like a variety show. Even when Rove was around, Rove was always Hey was putting comics through. Rove was putting comics through, and it really helps the young kids get a profile. So now, there is other ways and means for the younger comics to get out there via the internet, and I notice, you look up at some of the young comics and how many followers they have. I don't even know what Twitter is.
Yep. How important do you think an audience is? Not just Twitter and internet, but if you go along to a gig and you get a not very receptive stand-up audience, is that going to wreck your mojo
Of course. Well, I mean, but you know, most comedians, you know, will go through gigs which are hard. It's just like, you know, you have an off day, at the office. But I believe the worst shows I find where you already behind the eight ball when you get there and the PA's not good enough or the microphone and you can't get through to them, you can't shut the audience up if you're not loud enough I find that more irritating than bad crowds. Bad crowds, look, you know, they're just ashamed that day there's 120 people in the crowd and they've all had a bad day. Yeah. And you've just got to turn around. But I find you need a microphone and you need a place where you can stand and some sort of power, you know, to get through them. And, you know, I think my advice always to young comics, and I got this advice too of people like Shane Bourne and things, that if you are doing a gig and it's hard, you don't bail. Because there might be a time in your set where you're actually, you turn the audience around.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you think, well, next time I get a hard audience, I might do that bit and a bit earlier. So you find that some of the things that are in your act actually can turn the audience back in your favour. So if you stay there and you just nut it out, some people go, oh, look, I'm completely having a hard time here, and you know, and your bullets of sweat are rolling off you, and you're struggling. But I believe, you know, you'll come out the other end by staying there stronger, and you'll learn from the experience. You know.
Great.
Wow.
that's only my thought, you know. And if I was speaking to Dave O'Neill just a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, you know, it's a lot of it's, you know, having confidence in your material too, and you know, so it's, you know, and getting out there and selling it and believing in it as well. You know, but the crowds are, you know. They've got, if they're like, you know, you're like a rabbit in the spotlight. You know, they can see if you're struggling, and you know.
Yeah. If you write a bit and you go, I love this.
Yes.
This makes me laugh.
Yes.
Do you ever then go, okay, but maybe it's just me?
That happens quite a lot. And sometimes you'll write something or you'll come up with a little idea and then you'll workshop it on stage, and by the time you get it, it might take you 6 months and you might only have a minute on this subject, and then it grows to 5 or 6 minutes, you know. So you find you'll be doing something. Look, for example, I've been doing this joke, and I've probably only done it 10 times, but it gets a big laugh, but it's so silly. It's just there was just because I always sing in the shower, and how this silly joke came about. I was watching an ad, and I was singing in the shower when I'm washing my hair, always when I wash my hair, and my partner yells out from the other room, Russell, why are you singing so loud in the shower these days? I said, it's your fault. You're the one who bought the shampoo with the extra volume. You know, because there was an extra volume shampoo ad on, and it made me laugh, and I did it. I've probably done it 7 or 8 times. That's all on stage, that joke, and once it completely just they went, oh God, it's like a dad joke, which I don't really care what type of humour. If it makes the audience laugh, I don't really care. You know, I sit there and go, well, oh, that's kooky, or that's a bit, you know, a bit strange, or a bit, you know.
But did you laugh? Yes.
I laugh, yeah, but that's the thing, you know. I you know, that's why I love the good thing about comedy, you know, because it's so quick, and if you don't like something, hang around. The guy's got something else to say straight after it, so you don't have to necessarily love every single joke a comedian does. You enjoy the experience. Probably the hardest thing is watching or doing a show and people got their phones up, and you're sitting there going, wow, you had a live show, and you got your phone up, and you're sitting there going, what's the point? You know, it's when you see people at concerts and they're sitting there and they're looking at a rock and roll concert through their phone. I find that quite. What's the experience here?
You may as well have.
Most well just got the DVD, yeah, because you're looking for it. Look, grab a little shot, you know, but sitting there, you know, I find that quite. I try and when I see somebody with the phone, I'll try and do a magic trick with it or take it off of them and turn it off, or you know, have some fun, try and make some fun. Only because I want them to enjoy themselves, and I don't want somebody else behind them saying, you know, can you put your phone down?
Have you had a really good heckle?
Look,
whose interview is this, Mr. Gridley?
Yeah. Sorry, I've taken over.
Keep going.
No, look, I had many, but, you know, too many, nothing that, usually the best way to, you let them go, and then or you try and make some fun out of what they say. You know, some people just yell out something random, you know, like, you know, I bought some wood at Bunnings. What? And I find when people do yell out, you know, did they think about it? before? Did they plan it? Were they happy with that heckle? You know, I've often talked to an audience going, when you heckled them, were you driving today saying, I'm going to heckle, and this is that, and are you happy with the where you put your heckle in? And, you know, I think it's more fun to have a bit of fun, but I find... And have noticed comedy audiences nowadays don't heckle as much, and I think that's a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? There was an era there where a lot of comedians loved the hecklers because they could play with them. But look at the odd heckle and the odd comment, or you know, I believe sometimes I'm heckling the audience and I'm asking them questions. You know, where are you from? What do you do? And trying to get some humour out of that. So in a way, it works both ways. That's my opinion, anyway.
I read that you used to be a butcher. So what was the path into comedy from butchery?
Well, it's the same industry. When you get in the TV industry, when you get in the TV industry or the showbiz industry or, you know, radio, it's very similar. The knives come out in both. You know, you can get a bad review, get knifed, a bad review about something. You know, I had a couple of my own TV shows, and, you know, one worked really well, the other rated really well, and the other one, it was a bad time slot, and it didn't work. And look, you just got to bear that. And with the meatworks, look, I was just working as I left school halfway through Form 3, Year 9. Year 9, yeah, that was the hardest 3 years of my life, Year 9. No, I did, I left about September, August, and I started the next day at the meatworks with my mother and father, God bless them both. They were working at the abattoirs, and I worked there for roughly 6-7 years. And I always used to get there's a lot of butchers on the mutton chain. I'd get them singing along, and I'd always impersonate the union delegate when we had a meeting in the big hall. I'd get up and go, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting has been called today, and get the whole crowd, or, you know, sometimes there'd be 700 people in the big hall, you know, because there was the freezer department, there was the skin sheds, there was the abattoirs where they actually, where the sheep, got killed, and then there was a gutting room, and there were so many different departments. So when we had a big strike or a big meeting there, you had quite a good audience and a good PA, let me tell you, you know. So, when the meatworks closed down, I went and became a motorbike courier, and that's when I started watching comics and befriended Glenn Robbins and Trevor Marmalade and Shane Bourne and stuff as watching before I got into it. And then Elliot Goblet, Jack Levi, who plays Elliot Goblet, you're aware of Elliot Goblet, very funny comedian, been around a long time, does a lot of corporate functions, and he sent me to a guy called Peter Crofts, who's at the University. He has a university. He works with a lot of young comics. Used to be in Sandringham. He's still out there now, and we're doing a benefit for him for all. He has the most extensive comedy memorabilia and comedy of all sorts, on record, vinyl, on tape, DVD, books, joke files, and we're doing a big benefit at the Comics Lounge on March the 1st with a lot of comedians there, so we can go and store that somewhere so people can go out and have a look at it. And some of the memorabilia and some of the stuff, the paraphernalia he has on comedy. But if there's any young comics out there, you look him up at the University, Peter Crofts, the Humour, Comedy and Laughter Centre. But he calls it the University.
I like it.
I like it too, Lee.
Creative name. Did you have your sights set on a radio and TV career?
Well,
or were you just worried about comedy?
No. I just went along and started trying out at La Joke and a few places like that. And Trevor Marmalade really pushed me into it because I was a motorbike courier. And I told him I'd deliver Putton not far from where he lives, and I dropped in and had a coffee with him a couple of times, and I kept saying, I'm going to get up, and then I was at a gig one day, and Trevor says, this bloke, he always says he's going to get up, and he made me get up out of the crowd. God bless him. He's still a good friend of mine, Trev. And I got up out of the audience, and I did about 7 or 8 minutes. And
that you'd prepared?
Well, I've been working on, but I just really hadn't done it. I must have done about 10 or 12 minutes, to be honest, because I watched a lot of tryouts doing 4 or 5 minutes, and then I realised to have a front spot, or the first spot, you needed 15. So I kept working up, and I'd try it out on all my friends in the pub and impersonate people, and I did some more impersonations at that time as opposed to stand-up. I was, and you tell an old joke to fill the time in, so I was just getting... So that was how I really got on and Trevor, and then started working with Trevor and Glenn. We did a show called Glenn Robbins, of course.
Yep.
I used to go around and see Glenn and have a banana smoothie with him, and he helped me a lot as well. And Shane Bourne was a big help. So.
And that first gig was a win?
That was very good. Yeah, it went very well. I had a great time. Trevor, that was a really good fun show because I didn't expect it. It was like a tryout, and I'd actually done so many. I practiced it so much, you know. So when I got to there, even if I was just rolling, like I wasn't thinking about it too much. I was more machine gunning it, trying to remember it in some sort of order, and that's basically how I got my start.
Speaking of remembering it in an order, sorry, Lane, I'll let you get back to your questions soon, but I'm excited.
So am I, actually. It's good.
Good.
It's nice to be here.
Elliot Goblet, you mentioned.
Yes.
Now, he has that deadpan, just joke after joke after joke, and there doesn't seem to be a link, but it matches what you said. You know, if one misses, never mind.
Yeah. Well, Elliot Goblet, he'll be. I think he's definitely on that night with me as well. For Peter Crofts, that benefit we're doing. Look, I fell in love with Elliot Goblet's character. He used to come out with zinc cream on his nose early on, and a pair of little round glasses. We got a bit of a bug. It could be someone's phone going off.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so I was watching him. Daryl Summers had a show, the Daryl Summers Show, and I think Elliot Goblet must have done about 10 spots, and I loved it. I just loved the whole thing. He's very much along the lines at the same time. Around the same time, there was another comedian around who's still king of that type of humour, Steve Wright, of course, and Mitch Hedberg's another who comes to mind, who's very funny, you know. He does a series of one-liner, but Elliot Goblet's character, he does some great stuff at corporates where he studies the whole the whole audience, what he's doing, be it 100 carpenters, and he works around it. So he does see. I know it seems there's no links there, but I think there's something in his head that tells him where that next line goes. But when you watched, I saw Stephen Wright do the same, and they were just a series of just going off in different. I don't think you need some sort of linking for some routines is great. You know, yes. Richard Jenny was another one who's passed away recently, but he was another great comedian who linked really well, different topics, but linked really well, long bits.
I remember seeing Peter Hellier one time in his early days, and he would make a joke of not having. He'd just jump to the next joke. Yeah. And then when everybody realised, he'd say, "Sorry, no time for links." Funny. Yeah, Peter's very funny too. Very funny man. And he's doing very well on the project at the moment. And look, speaking of, we can't leave out how good Hughesy is, Will Anderson. There's so many good Australian comics out there, so it's pretty good. And Mick Malloy, see, there's someone you go out and watch when he's roaring out there doing stand-up. He's fantastic. The strength at the moment.
Oh, look, Mick's just a huge talent, on every level. He's done the movies, he's done stand-up, he's done radio, he's done his sketch shows, he's done it all. He's just a super talent.
How long had you been doing stand-up for before you got into TV?
I think I was lucky enough to be doing a spot at Le Joke, and there was 2 rooms. Le Joke was a room upstairs, and downstairs was a bigger room called The Last Laugh. So you could proceed, if you're doing pretty good, you could get a show at The Last Laugh after you worked, did some flying hours at Le Joke. And what happened was, I think it was in 85. Yeah, it was in 85, so I would have started just around about 84. And then, lucky enough, in 85, Daryl Summers was watching a show downstairs at The Last Laugh and came up during interval during the show at The Last Laugh and saw me doing a spot at Le Joke, and I got a little spot on Hey Hey Saturday, a 4-minute, 3.5 to 4 minute little bit. And then the next year I did another one, and then I was lucky enough to be with Glenn Robbins, who was working on the pilot for the comedy company. So I was in the audience with Glenn, watching them tape the first show, and Tim Smith, another great stand-up and sketch performer, him and Glenn were basically warming the crowd up, and they were in a sketch together, so I jumped out the audience and I helped warm up the crowd. And then after about episode 2 or 3, Ian McFadden and the guys put me in a sketch, and so I was just lucky. Sometimes you're in the right place where they throw the pie.
You jumped onto our TV screens in the late 80s, early 90s with Tonight Live with Steve Weiser, the comedy company, as you mentioned, and of course Hey Hey It's Saturday, which you also mentioned. What was your impression of the Australian comedy industry back then? Was it strong?
I was. We were lucky. I only did a few of Steve Izard shows, a few guest spots and stuff. I might have done the warm-ups once or twice too for Steve. Look, we're very lucky because there was an era there. There was Paul Hogan, Norman Gunston, and there wasn't much in the way of that type of comedy around. And then with the success of the Comedy Company, sort of in the late 80s. Then Steve Izard had Fast Forward come out at the same time, and then there was the big gig with Wendy Harmer and all that crew were just smashing it. So it was actually a really good time, to be involved in comedy.
Because I know in America they had a really strong period through the 70s and 80s. They had a lot of good stand-ups, and a lot of them went into TV, but
a lot of them went into film. See, the thing is, in America too, if you're a good decent stand-up comic, you get serious roles. You look at most of those, most of the guys who are acting now, Billy Crystal, Robin Williams, all them, and it keeps going on with Adam Sandler and
David Spade, Chris Rock,
all stand-ups, all did stand-up comedy. I think Tom Hanks may have done some stand-up as well. There's so many of those people that came out of stand-up comedy and into film. It's just amazing.
Now, before we go any further, I want to play one of your clips from YouTube. I found a couple that I really liked, and one that I think I know where you got it from, but we'll play this one first. Now, just imagine you've been to the fruit shop, and you've got all your different fruits and vegetables, and I think this is absolutely brilliant. So, do you remember this?
This may have. This is a vegetable. I think it was along the lines of Ostentatious, who's another great stand-up comic. He inspired me early. This is a lot of vegetable puns, and I was pulling vegetables out of a box.
You had this whole story. Yep.
Yeah, and I think it was Russell Gilbert live.
We'll turn mute off.
Anyway, I'll show you what I bought. Have a look at this. Herb was going out with Rosemary. They were a nice pair. They're at this party when this big Swede walked in and said he'd arrange some drinks for us. Artie choked on his first drink. Someone said, pass Leigh a drink. Everyone was having a great time. Except for Anna. So we decided to ban Anna from drinking with us again. I couldn't hear the music, so I decided to turn up the stereo. There wasn't much room to dance, but everyone was chiving anyway. All of a sudden, Mick said we should go down the pub to get some more beer. I said, can Capsy come? He said, sure, as long as you come quietly. When we were driving, this bird just flew into the windscreen. Gus said, what was that? I said, it looks like a sparrow, Gus. It was still alive and flapping its wings, so Artie choked it and killed it to put it out of its misery. Then we decided to go for a leak. Well, it was ages since I've been for a pee. And the coppers caught us and said they'd let us leave. If I rang a taxi, I was no dill, so I rang one. And the taxi took ages. I said, what's going on? We rang that cab ages ago. I got back to the party. Mandy runs up to me. She said, we should get marrow. She said, we can live on your salary. She said, you can buy me a 9-carat ring. I said, we can't get married. Your mother hates my guts. She said, well, run away. I said, no, we can't elope. Then Keeney came in. He said, fig in hell. How long's that broad been here? I said, which one? He said, the one with the radish hair. I said, you're a sucker, ain't he? You're always trying to insult Anna. Then my mate said, you want a drink? I said, yeah, pass the water, Mel, on the bench. Then he left. I said, where'd that man go? And soon someone stole me drink. I said, I wouldn't put a parsnip. Anyway, applause.
That was an apple at the end. I have a different ending for when I used to do that live, which is a little bit cheekier. It was, I heard you sleep with your sister. I said, no, I know you can't beat a root, but only weirdos pumpkin. And yeah, geez, and there's a lot.
Does that bring back memories?
Yeah, it brings back memories. I do that every now and then. Sometimes you'll be out doing a function or doing a gig, or a stand-up gig, and they'll ask for that. I used to do one on Suburbs too, because that's how I basically got. When I was a motorbike courier at the time, I was into a lot of wordplay. Abbott and Costello as a kid, and I used to always play around.
That's where I think you got the next clip I'm going to play from.
Well, but I liked Abbott and Costello and just the wordplay they did, and Ostentatious brought out Australiana in the early 80s, and then he brought out an album called Whispering Joke after Whispering Jack came out, and I got a funny feeling I may have got that idea in for Benny Hillsong as well. But there was another guy who did one on fish, Kippadoda his name was. It was called Wet Dream. It's quite a nice one if you ever want to play it on the radio show one weekend. It's called Wet Dream Kippadoda, where he does one on fish, on porpoise, and.
I do love that one. There comes a point where a pun goes from being a dad joke to a pun war, perhaps between two people trying to go as much as you can. And then when you go, geez, we've come up with 10, we're going to keep going here, and it just it's very clever.
I like a pun, but look, you wear people down.
How big was that box of vegetables?
Yeah, well, whenever I've done, I did it on stage.
Did you script that? Because some of the time you looked a bit sceptical, but did you script
no, but I was just I added some new stuff in because I did it in stand-up, and there's other ones there now, I wouldn't put it past Leo, I wouldn't put it past Nip, we were playing snooker, I said past the cucumber, and, there's a lot, because now, I was playing around with it not long ago, and I was just looking, because now you sit there and go, you had an iPhone, was it an Apple? No, it was a BlackBerry, so... Somebody stole his iPhone. So you could add so much more, there's a lot more you could add into that thing, but I got talked into doing that. I think Cos Cardone, who was in charge of the show, said, I'll do that, I've seen you do that live, and so I ended up doing it on that show. That was the Saturday night show the year after Hey Hey, which rated really well, but they didn't pick it up after the 13 episodes, and so... Yeah, that's brings back some memories, Elaine. Thank you.
Good memories?
Yeah, it was good.
That's what I want.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was good fun to do that show, and that's and that was a fun thing to do because you could bring a lot of comedians through that show, that type of show as well, which I'd like to see again. I'd like to see someone out there doing shows where I can get back on and do a bit of variety again, and do a bit of stand up. It's fun.
In 1996, you were nominated for a Logie for the most popular comedy personality. Did that come as a surprise to you, and did you expect to win?
No, I didn't expect to win. I think I was down in the next year as well. I think both years I was nominated. But I got beat by one of the best talents in the world, Magda Szubanski. So I was so privileged to be just amongst Magda Szubanski, Gina Turner, Gina Riley and Jane Turner, just fantastic comics. But I was just wrapped. And then the next year I was up again. But I think I got to the last four, and then the nominations came up. And Eric Bana won that one. So I was amongst good talent. So
he's another one that's gone on to kind of drama acting as well.
Yeah, but a great... See, Eric wasn't doing a lot of stand-up. He did a bit of stand-up early on, but he was so good at the characters. When he got onto Full Frontal and Fast Forward and those shows, God, did he shine. You could really see. He was a good stand-up comic, but God, when he got the characters, could he nail them? And when his character Peter, I was lucky enough to tour a little bit with Eric when he was doing his Peter character, and fantastic. And he's done really well. I mean, there's a couple that have gone on to do some good drama. Shane Bourne's another one got into, but yeah, not so many comics have got serious roles. I think Glenn did a couple of films, Glenn Robinson, but it's not as. It's not the same as it is in America, where if you a pretty good stand-up or you're doing well at stand-up, you get films.
Did you prefer being the one that could make all the decisions, or just tagging along with the big show?
Never.
Hey?
No, it was great working with Daryl, such a professional, and having ideas, and lucky to be part of the creative team on Hey Hey for 7 or 8 years while I was on that, with a bunch of other people, Paul Collegia and Andrew May and a few other writers. But it was really good fun. But even on my own shows, I didn't make all the decisions myself. We had a little writing team, and they were a really good bunch of blokes, and so we all worked on that stuff together, and I got a fair bit of a help. But Daryl, working under Daryl was just an amazing experience.
I think there's a reason that it's a rough trend for comedians. Like the McAuliffe Tonight ran 9 episodes. Mick Malloy's show didn't last too long.
Mine went 8, you know.
So it's those that Channel 9 time slot that in the 90s was straight after Friends. I just don't think audiences were ready for something a bit
but also, I don't think they'd let them bed in, you know, at that time. I think, you know, you got to bed in. Look, you know, that's why you admire Channel 10 with the project, you know. It was struggling early on and they let it bed in and it picked up a really good little audience and it's still going strong.
Yeah.
You know, not that I watch a lot of that because I'm not around at that time, but when I do watch it, but I mean, it's nice to let, and networks now, because people are stealing stuff off the internet and, you know, before it even gets to their network TV. So if a network buys a good TV show, people are downloading it before it hits here, you know. Look, I was much the same when Breaking Bad was on, you know. I couldn't wait for the next episode. Yeah. So I understand, but in the modern times, I think the years you're talking about, both you guys, I think just shows needed to bed in, because you look what, you know, Sean's doing, you know, now, and he's just, even his Tonight Show I found hilarious.
Oh,
you know,
brilliant.
And Mick, you know, it was just the same. It just didn't, I don't think it really got to bed in much, you know. It's just hard work.
I thought that was the same with Peter Hellier's footy show. I can't remember what it was called, but he had his own footy show for a few weeks.
That's right, yeah, that's right. So sometimes they think, oh, we'll pull the plug early, and but that's happened on a lot of shows. There's one called the Comics. We had the Comedy Company. There's another one, the Comedy... I can't remember what it's called, but it didn't last too long. But some go on and you know, it's just the way things are at the time, you know. And in this modern day, people, you know, are watching less TV. So you've really got to nail it.
Well, I've got one more clip for you before we go into your radio career and a few other things that you've done. This is what I thought you got from Abbott and Costello.
Is it? Okay.
Yes. So this is one of your many Who Wants to Be a Millionaire clips. You've done a lot of them.
I did about 4, and you know the wonderful thing, 4 or 5, I think, and we did them with the Millionaire audience and in the Millionaire set. And Eddie McGuire, man, what a true professional. I walked in, I said, Eddie, here's a script, he has a look at it, and just all one takes, and didn't stop. And he was just amazing, and that's why he is what he is. He's one of the most talented guys, I reckon, in the country. I think somebody like Eddie was in America, he'd be bigger than David Letterman.
Yeah?
He's got a good turn of phrase, got a good sense of humour, and he just knows.
And I'm supposed to hate him. I'm an Essendon supporter, but I can't. He's just a great media person.
I like him. I love him because he helps all the footy clubs. It's not just about Collingwood. Yes. He's the voice for a lot of footy clubs and helped a lot of other footy clubs.
He makes a lot of sense, and he just works and works.
Well, I don't know which one this is.
This is the one. It's
This one you're
it's play. A is like A is pardon, B is A.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
Abbott and Costello-esque.
That is very Abbott and Costello-esque. It's very
Yeah, okay. That's where I thought you got it from. So we'll have a listen to it.
Gilbert from Footscray in Victoria, your chance to make game show history. We are now playing for the biggest amount ever on Australian television. For $500,000, Russell, here's the question. According to a recent survey, which word do most people use when they haven't heard something properly? Is it A, what? B, A, C, huh? D, pardon.
Pardon?
D.
What?
We want A. What?
A is B.
No, B is A.
Huh?
Huh is C.
C.
C. Would you like to lock in C, huh?
What?
No. What is A? A is what? B is A. C is huh? D is pardon. You said pardon, then you said A, then you said what, then you said huh. For $500,000, I need to lock one in, Russell.
The first one.
Pardon?
Yes.
What? A. A and A or A and B? Huh? C. We lock in C, huh?
Yeah, C.
Is that your final answer?
What?
Is A your final answer?
Yeah, Hazel, just lock it in.
Let's lock in A what? The question, according to a recent survey, which word do most people use when they haven't heard something properly? You said pardon and changed your mind. That was a good idea. You said A, which is B, but you decided to go for A, which is what? And you've won $500,000!
When I watched that sketch back, I think that's an Eddie McGuire sketch. Look, his timing's amazing, isn't it? You look at that sketch, how he was throwing, he was doing all the work in that sketch.
Yeah.
You know? But there was who's on first, what's on second, I don't give a damn on third.
Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those type sketches around on the different shows. But I mean, that's one form of comedy I always loved. I always loved the play on words, and it's. But there was one there when I had to go to the toilet, which I really liked.
Yeah.
I like doing that one, and Eddie just milked me and played with it and made the sketch go probably a minute longer than we were planning, and it all worked.
Yeah,
it's
actually very Two Ronnies-esque as well.
Well, there's, you try and mix it up, and some things are always going to sound like other things, but that was just a bunch of blokes all sitting around, in the writers' room and tossing ideas at each other.
It's nice to be compared to people like Abbott and Costello.
Well, yeah. Well, we had there. Well, that was a sad one because Abbott and Costello, the little fella, he wanted more money than the other fella, and in the end, that's how they broke up because he said, "I'll go 60-40," and the other guy went, "Yeah, no worries," and then he went 70-30. In the end, the other guy said, "Yeah, no worries." And he wanted 80-20. He went. Yeah, no, and in the end they fell
like a sketch
apart.
ready to go.
It was like a sketch, and then they sort of fell apart, and then he didn't do much on his own. But it was I love that. I love Jerry Lewis. We got lucky enough.
Yeah, I was just thinking Jerry Lewis. I bought one or two Jerry Lewis DVDs with his. I can't remember who his partner was.
Dean Martin.
Of course, that's the one. Yeah, so I bought one of them, and it's all black and white, and it's all hard to understand. But whatever you pick out is just brilliant.
Is it the Colgate Hour?
It might be, yeah.
That was I've got some of those on DVD as well. I was lucky enough to interview him. He was a bit hard to interview, but when I met him, and I saw him twice at the Crown Casino at the Palms at Crown, and he was fantastic. Just a showman. There was times there where he was the biggest entertainer in the world. Just amazing.
Through the late 90s and early 2000s, you hosted your own shows, as you mentioned, the Russell Gilbert Show, Russell Gilbert Live, and Russell Gilbert Was Here. What was the difference for you between hosting your own show and being on a show with other people as a panellist or co-host, like you were with Hey Hey, The Wedge, or The Comedy Company? Well,
The Wedge wasn't really working on I was just helping behind the scenes on The Wedge, and look, I found the Russell Gilbert Show, the first one, which I did in a little round audience, was a lot of fun because I could link it with sketches. So I could have fun and then link the sketches and throw to a sketch. I found that one to be, and the second one when I did the live one, I wasn't really, I probably didn't nail that. It was a 6:30 show, and what I wanted to do, they put me in the Hey Hey time slot, and I found I would have wished I would have gone in a time slot like when the footy show was over during the summer. I would have liked to have done a bit later. You can be a little bit more risque, and you can be a bit more cheekier. And I was probably nervous. I was just starting to get comfortable probably on Russell Gilbert Live when it was coming to an end. I was just starting to get comfortable. I was starting to feel like I'm a bit more confident in it, and just, because it was very nerve-wracking. And then when I did start to feel it sort of was gone, and then I went on to the Russell Gilbert Was Here, and I wasn't there long for that one. But I wanted to link that one like the first one, but in the end they wanted to rush it on, and I never got to do the links, and they did a cartoon link. But look, and they put me up against Better Homes and Gardens, which was the #1 show, and it just kicked me in the head.
Still the #1 show.
Oh man, it just killed me up. Look, I have to admit I got smashed, and that's the showbiz. When did you start getting into radio? Now, I used to listen to you on 3AW with Dennis Walter and Darren James. So how deep does your history in radio go? Look, I did bits and pieces. I wasn't really a morning person. I was lucky enough to do about 7 months breakfast radio in Perth, which was good. It was 2 hours behind, so I was getting up at 8 and starting at 9 to 11. And then did little bits and pieces. I remember that early on I used to come on and do a John Michael Howson thing with Richard Stubbs when Richard Stubbs was on 3XY, like, oh, hello girls, hello fellas, oh, it's a great movie, oh, it's one of those fantastic movies. And I'd do a little... Brilliant. Yeah, I used to do a little impersonation of him, what was happening in the magazines, New Idea. I called the segment No Idea, I think. Oh, this week in No Idea, oh. And he was, and I later got to meet him a few times on Hey Hey Saturday and stuff, and yeah, it was good fun. But that was really early, it must have been 88 or 89 or something like that, and did bits and pieces, and then did some stuff with Tim Smith and Bedders and all those guys, and Matty, Parko. So radio was just always bits and pieces. I just went back and did a little bit on SEN. Then I did a year on SEN, but about 10 years ago. But the Friday lunch we were talking about was with Dennis Walter and Darren James. Great fun. But in the end, the guy who's doing overnights,
Andrew McLaren,
wanted to do part of it, so that's how that never finished. But I started with Dennis on the Sundays before Dennis got that, and we did a food show. Because one of my biggest hobbies is food, always has been. Even before all the cooking shows, I was always into food. Pitched a few cooking shows before the cooking shows got up, and thought cooking was going to be the big new black, and missed the boat there. But that was a fun show, talking on the Sunday just about food and different restaurants and different. One week we talk about curries, one week we talk about spaghettis and whatever. It was good fun. But radio's always been fun.
Did you prefer AM or FM? What were the differences for you?
Just the dial, I think.
Yeah.
No, I didn't really notice much difference.
No?
No.
Because on FM, there's a lot more music, there's a lot more ad breaks, but on AM you have to be able to talk a lot more and listen to people a lot more.
Well, that's correct. But I mean, nowadays, if you listen to FM, all the great shows that are on FM, all a listener ringing in with problems, and I think that's become a lot more. Come to the forefront more, you know what I mean?
SEN's changed a lot of things too, so I think they're melding.
Yeah, well, SEN, the Sports Entertainment Network, and I'm lucky enough to do some stuff with Mark Fine, who I started with when SEN did their first year, and Mark's still, but I think he's in his 10th year now, so he's done really, really well. But, I think it has gone a lot of talk back, people ringing in. I listen to a whole bunch of different things on radio, I'll listen to Mick and Eddie in the morning and Luke, and then I'll flick it over and I'll listen to a bit of Ross and John. Then I'll flick it over when Yuzi is on, have a little bit, listen to Yuzi. I've always gone to bed with the radio in my headphones. Always. I wake up every day with a little earpiece in, and I go to sleep, and whatever I wake up, I'll flick it over, listen to a bit of Red Simons. So I don't really, not fussed AM, FM.
Do you prefer TV or radio?
They're both so different,
Yeah.
There was something fun about live TV because you could see the audience, and they reacted to it. And at home, you can't. On the radio, you can hear the people laughing around you, but you can't hear the audience laughing in the cars when they're going to work and stuff. There is something about live TV that gives you a really big adrenaline boost, that when you can see it, and you're caught, and like I said earlier, a rabbit in a spotlight. I used to go rabbiting, so it's saying it. Dad used to always say
Out in Footscray?
No, we used to just go. We wouldn't have to drive far from the western suburbs to get rabbits. 25, 30 years ago, it was all barren land. There was nothing past Deer Park, and between Deer Park and Melton, you could still get rabbits.
Yeah. We've got 12 minutes, so I just want to get through the last few questions.
Flying through it. What?
Yeah,
wow,
I want to get through the last few questions before we finish up because
you can ring me. You can ring me and ask me later.
No. You're here now, Russell. We've to get you on again.
Thanks for having me on too, Alain.
Some other cool things you've done include competing on Dancing with the Stars.
No, never. Not I know. It Takes Two.
It Takes Two. Is it set on IMDb something with Dancing with the Stars?
No, never. Okay. Haven't done Dancing with the Stars. I'll probably, on my timing to follow music, was hard. But I can hold a note. But I did something with Wendy Matthews on It Takes Two.
It Takes Two, yeah. And I've
that
also
was good
got
fun.
You toured America with Russell Crowe and his band, and you toured Australia with Jason Alexander, obviously from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, from those two experiences with Russell Crowe and Jason Alexander, what did you learn about the American entertainment and comedy industries that's a bit different to Australia?
Well, I noticed that talk slower. With Russell's band, 30-odd Foot of Grunts, 30-odd Foot of Grunts, which was they were fantastic. It was great. That was a great little tour, and he sold out, and all the audience knew all the songs, but I noticed I had to talk. I just came on, did about 5 or 7 minutes up front, and then I brought on Danielle Spencer, who was his wife. She did a little bit, and then we had an Indigenous dancer. So Russell put this little show together, and then in one town, we might be in Chicago, he would have booked a barber shop quartet or something. So we made it a show, and then they'd close, and it was sold out everywhere we went. Our audience loved it. They knew the songs, and it was a real good fun experience. Jason Alexander, he's just a sweetheart to work with as well. And I was lucky enough to do that tour with Mick Malloy also. Mick did that with me, and we had a really good fun time doing that as well. But I I just noticed when I was working in America, I had to talk a lot slower because I remember reading a review and it was because I was you'd be screaming and yelling because they were rock bands. You know, one day I could hardly talk. Probably the second or third last show I did, I remember reading and then the comedian came out and it was really hard to understand him. But I that was because of my sore throat because I'd already been talking slower. You know, talking slower after the first show. I noticed that they weren't picking up on and changing some words like shopping trolleys, you know, just different little bit words that meant nothing. We thought, you know, we just use them. But
do they respond to those different little Australianisms? Because we love the Irish, it seems.
Yeah, well, I believe the Canadian sense of humour is more similar to ours than the American sense of humour. Canadians have a really good sense of humour. Some great Canadian comedians. What was your question?
Yeah, well, you just made me think of Montreal because they love their...
They love the comedy festival, yeah.
But do American audiences pick up on that?
Yeah.
He's an Aussie, he's weird and kooky, isn't he?
Yeah,
the way he says jumper instead of sweater.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing, yeah, but that's where you've got to try and change it because you can be doing a whole monologue. I think I might have done the Birdie Beetle routine over there, but I did it with a different chocolate. Might have been a Hershey's bar.
Yep.
But I remember I had to say shopping cart instead of shopping trolley. When I threw the little kid in the shopping trolley, I had to say that because I noticed, well, geez, it's not getting a laugh.
They just won't get it.
No, it was just the word trolley and shopping cart. You know, add it to the cart when you get on the website and you buy something from America. Add it to the cart and you go, oh, right, okay, just little things. But, yeah, interesting.
And you've talked a lot about America's history and comedy. Did you get a bit of that feel when you went to America, like the great history of the Tonight Show, and you mentioned Abbott and Costello, and like through the 80s with Jerry Seinfeld. Brad Garrett's another one who I went to go see stand up recently, who's brilliant. Well, everybody loves Raymond. Yeah.
Well, I was nearly going to support him about 3 years ago. He was coming out 3 years ago, and he ended up. I think he might have been unwell, and he cancelled that tour, and then he came back.
He came out last year.
He came out last year. Yeah. I was going to support him about 3 years ago. Yeah, he was fantastic, good fun.
Oh, so much fun. Like offensive to every community you can think of, but nobody cared. Yeah. It just runs through it, and nobody cares. Nobody takes it seriously.
That's it.
There was a bit of heckling, but he got over it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Well, and some of the fan questions were absolutely terrible, but, you know.
Right, when they were asking questions about it.
At the end, yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good fun thing when Jason Alexander, him telling stories about Seinfeld. And
I went to go see that as well, yeah.
Did you go and see that?
Yeah, he was brilliant as well. He sang, he danced.
Yeah.
Did
you see the one I was in, or did you see the one when he came out the next time? Because
I might have gone not last year, the year before.
No, the second time he came back. Yeah, I went and saw that show myself. Yeah. He did really good because he wasn't really a stand-up comic, but he'd won a Tony on Broadway, so he's a great theatre performer.
And Ray Romano's coming out apparently this year as well, so I'm really excited about going to see him.
I'll go and see Ray Romano too. Yeah. Very funny.
But yeah, so did you get a taste of that American history of comedy when you were over
Well, I already have so much. I collect stuff. Look, I have like 25, 30 hours of Charlie Chaplin on tape, you know, and Lauren Hardy.
That's a lot of silence.
a lot of silence, but a lot of outtakes and a lot of shots that because he shot so much footage. But I mean, I was watching comedy, I got Buster Keaton stuff, and some of my stuff that I've watched just because I just used to love it. I used to go and watch a lot of comedy. Don't watch as much now because you feel like there's so many. It's so easy now. To think, oh God, they're talking about something I'm talking about, and you don't want to be, it's not like you're lifting material. It's just that you feel, I listen to stuff, older stuff to inspire me more than watching the newer stuff because you sit there and go, I feel working on a little routine. You go, oh well, you don't want to. But if you're doing a show, you try and watch the other comics before you, so you don't, because a lot of comics touch on similar subjects, and you just don't want to step on anyone's toes, and you want to play the game fair,
I do love those, the chance when comedians give audience members a chance to ask some questions. Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee lately on the internet.
I've watched a lot of that as well.
I haven't watched all of that, so somebody else told me I should go and watch a bit of that.
Yeah. And just like, there was also a HBO special with, I think it was Seinfeld, Louis C.K., Chris Rock, and Ricky Gervais, and they were all talking.
There's some talent in that show. You'd want to go and see that, wouldn't you?
And they all just sit, well, not even a show. They just sat around, talked to one another, and said, "What inspired you? How do you?" And they took the one joke, and they all did it in their individual style.
Right.
And they really got an idea of how everybody borrows from everybody a little bit. And just makes their own stuff.
What was the other movie where they just told the one joke?
Oh, yes.
And Gilbert Godfrey, he was fantastic.
That is called the Aristocrats.
The Aristocrats, that's the one. There, it's quite good. I love Gilbert Godfrey. He's got such an amazing energy about him. I've seen him do some great stuff on the roasts.
Yes.
And I think Brad Gilbert, when you're talking about
Brad Garrett,
Brad Garrett. I think he did a great joke on one of the roasts too, which is so wrong but so funny. But like you said, he doesn't miss any stereotypes.
No, he covers everything. I asked him...
National Panasonic, Onkyo, all those stereotypes.
I got to ask a question at the end, and he spent about 6 or 7 minutes just bagging the hell out of my name. And it was brilliant, because I've got... Everyone knows Elaine from Seinfeld.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking.
A male's name as well, so I loved it. I was just there smiling at him.
Well, when I got in here, I was nearly going to have a bit of fun with that myself. I was thinking, what did your mum and dad do? They just said, look, we'll just throw an eye into Alan.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking along those lines, because when
what about Leigh?
Leigh, well, I got a niece called Leigh and a nephew called Leigh.
There you go. Yeah.
From the same brother or sister?
No.
Okay.
No, I believe the story was with that roast that he didn't think it was going very well. He wasn't getting a laugh. He wasn't getting a response. And then he went all of a sudden, "This family, walk into it." Yeah, just went with it. And all the comedians went, "You can't. That's our secret. That's our joke that we don't do."
Yeah, it was a great... He really nailed it. He gets so much energy into it. That wasn't a bad film. I'm going to have to watch a little bit of the Seinfeld and cast.
Yeah, I'm just going to check with the host in the other studio if we can go a little bit over time, because there's still a few questions left, but they're not listening to me, so we'll go a little bit over time. That won't matter. Obviously, you're well, not obviously, but I know that you're a passionate Bulldogs supporter.
Yeah.
How did you get into the footy crowd? I know you did a few episodes of the footy show. You've done EJ Whitten Legend game quite a lot over the last 10
years. Yeah, because
years.
I'm very I'm involved in that because I'm a bit of an ambassador for the EJ Whitten Foundation. So if any blokes are out there over 50, go and get a prostate check. It's very simple and it doesn't hurt.
How did you crack into the footy crowd, going from the comedy crowd to the footy crowd?
Well, that was just part. It was like going on to Celebrity Wheel of Fortune or something like that. That was just a footy game, and I just tried to make a few jokes, and if you could kick a goal, and you see, it's Peter Hallier, our famous character.
Strawny's Achilles.
Strawny. Strawny having great fun out there. He kicked a couple of goals last year.
Hamish and
Andy have had fun. But that's just the same. It's just getting out there and trying to make something fun. And that's what that whole game's about. So that was just having fun.
And getting onto the footy show, did you need a contact in there? Or
no, Trevor was on the bar.
So he was your contact between the two crowds.
Well, yeah, but not that the humour was different. But he just interviewed me at the bar in one of the earlier shows, and then he started yelling out more at the bar. But early on, he had a couple of people he'd just bring into the bar and have a chat to, and then he developed and just he had a great time at the bar on his own. He didn't need anyone. But it was just as the show evolved. I don't think they used him bringing guests into the bar as much.
And I've got to ask you...
He was throwing out his own zingers, and just smashing them out the park.
Now, what are your expectations for the Bulldogs this year? They've lost their captain, they've lost their Brownlow medalist, they've lost one of their big key forwards and gained another one. What are you expecting? I'm not expecting too much. I'm pretty excited about our forward line. I think our forward line, if we can get... I'm just a bit worried at the moment we haven't got a strong enough back line. But we've got a lot of good kids coming through. I think we're going to see, McRae's, your Stringer, Liberatore, and Wallace, and of course Bondum Pally, and the new fellow we've got, Boyd. It's going to be an exciting year, and look, we've had a few bad ones. Who do you follow? Melbourne.
So you know what it's like, and you yourself, Leigh?
And well, I just try and keep away from the Herald Sun for the last 4 years because you're a bunch of druggies, apparently.
Are you an Essendon supporter? You don't have to, no further questions.
I'll duck my head.
No, but I'm looking forward to the Bulldogs. I hope they have a good year.
What are your career highlights so far?
My career highlights. I just wish. It's hard to really think of. I loved every moment on Hey Hey It's Saturday. It was great fun. I really liked the Russell, my first show, the Russell Gilbert show. But just being, and I love getting on stage. So look, everything's been a bonus. I've been lucky. I just wish I was probably a bit more frugal with my money because I gamble too much. But I've had a lot of fun. It's been fun, and I still think there's more around the corner. I don't stick a fork in me yet. I'm not done.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. So plans for 2015. If we can't find you on social media, where can we find you?
Well, I'll be running around. You'll definitely find me at a few comedy clubs. I'll be out there performing again, getting my chops up, and getting back in it, getting that bit of mojo back, and getting out performing in front of a live crowd. That's how I started in the industry, and I thought if I have to come back in that way, it's going to be fun. And when you got a challenge ahead of you, you go, let's go, get up and go and have fun again. So I've been playing around with a lot of magic and a few novelty songs and a bit of stand-up, so I'll be out and about.
We'll have to get Russell going on Twitter and you just go gangbusters again.
Yeah,
have to get on
the famous Gilberto, at the famous Gilberto.
Yeah, the great Gilberto.
Gilberto.
Well, I've got one made up, a sticker, the not-so-great Gilberto, so magic goes wrong. But I just like dabbling in that.
Any more TV or radio?
Well, I'm hoping to do something on SEN again this year with Mark Fine, maybe an hour one night a week, and whatever else, whatever else. I didn't get asked to do I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, so obviously.
Thank God.
Well,
are you thankful for that?
Well, no. They don't even consider me a celebrity,
Why would you want to spend 6 months with Kerry-Anne Kennelly in the bush?
I don't know. I don't think Kerry-Anne Kennelly is.
Or Sophie Monk, or God knows who else
it could be fun.
Is anyone doing it yet?
Oh, it'll be I think it'll be quite fun. I think it'll be quite fun. No, look, I was just having a bit of a gag when I didn't get asked. But I'm going to be watching it. Yeah. I mean, but I haven't never done dancing. I don't think I'd ever be able to.
I saw something about Dancing with the Stars on IMDb. I don't know what it was.
No, definitely. I can't follow music. If you ever listen to me on It Takes Two, you'll see my timing. My timing's completely out when it comes to singing along to, or dancing along to music.
So you're better at impersonations. Who's your favourite impersonation?
I can't. I think when I started, I used to do Frank Spencer of all people.
Really?
Oh, I didn't think I'd make it here tonight. I was driving in my little car, and I pulled up at the traffic lights. And a lady pulled up beside me. She rolled her window down, and she said, "Pig." So I rolled my window down and I said, "Cow." Then I drove off and I hit the pig. I remember doing that, but that was so long ago. That was in 1983 when Some Mothers Do Have 'Em was on. I used to play around doing a few impersonations.
Now he's an opera singer.
He's an opera, and he was always involved in theatre.
Yeah. Any more else? Any others before we go? Any more impersonations?
You got me on the hop. I was playing around with Stefano. Stefano, the cook from
breakfast. I know the one you mean.
I was playing around doing him. Before we come to this country, I was the one who introduced the olives and the mustard, and we make the best cheese. But look, now you've caught me on the hop. I'm gonna practice and listen to you every Sunday. When I come back in here, I'm gonna try and get you down, Pat.
Oh, darn, I can kind of do Ernie from Sesame Street.
Go on, do it.
Kind of. Let me get my tune. Rubber ducky, you're the one. You make bath time so much fun. Rubber ducky, you're the only one for me.
And he pulls the face.
Is that all right?
It sounded a little bit like Kermit the Frog. Yeah, very close, isn't it?
I tried Yoda once, but it hurt my voice box too much.
Yeah.
It killed. Anyway, Russell, thank you for coming in. You're welcome to come in any other time you want.
Thanks for having me, both of you guys. It's been a pleasure, Leigh. Thank you very much, Alain.
And next, I guess there's a lot more music coming up in the next 2 hours. Sorry, we've gone a little bit over time, but it's all worth it. So we'll go out with Canned Heat, Jamaica here on 88.3 Southern FM. Thank you for listening to the Alain Go Goodman Show. Leigh, thank you for coming in. We'll see you in about 8 weeks. And Russell, you're welcome back anytime you want. Thanks for coming in. So enjoy the rest of the afternoon, the weather, and enjoy the Australian Open for the next 2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.